Welcome back to the Fisting Podcast. Can we try that again?
Yeah, let's do that again.
Start that up. I didn't mean to say that.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Brohio Podcast, a.k.a. the Cream Spot, a.k.a. the Fisting Pot. Hey, I'm the delicious Nicolicious. Thanks for joining us here on this interstellar galactic journey that we're going on.
I'm Rob Dog. Hey, guys. How's everybody doing today? Hopefully you're great. If not, well, fuck you. I don't know.
Hopefully you're as good as Rob Dog.
Yeah, I'm always good, man.
You're as red as Rob.
I'm always good.
So, where do we start, Rob?
Well, let's start with explaining what we just did.
Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
We sold the podcast to two teenagers from a podcast called The Not Very Hot Ones. They're middle schoolers.
They are your rulers now.
They keep on blowing us up on Twitter, guys. So I'm not going to play their promo because they don't deserve that.
Damn it. I'm just kidding.
No. It was like, it needs to be work on, all right?
Yeah.
But let me take you through this.
But it's okay.
These guys keep on talking to us on Twitter from the Not Very Hot Ones podcast. And I'm engaging these fellows, and they say, send us, and I say, send your promo, we'll play it on the show. So they email us, and it says, hey, I'm Todd and Jim. I don't remember their names, unfortunately, from the Not Very Hot Ones podcast. And I wrote them back, like, I'm not going to read your fucking promo, record a promo, and send it to us. And they're like, oh, okay. So they send it over, and I thought I was talking to grown men. These are like 12 and 13-year-olds that listen to our podcast, and we've inspired them to create their own podcast.
That's awesome. That's the drive right there, man.
We're inspiring young children. Shout out to the parents that are letting those kids do whatever the fuck they want. So you guys
awesome.
Go check out the Not Very Hot Ones podcast. They're 12 and they're young kids. I don't even think what's a middle schooler, like 10 to 12 or something?
My son's 11, so I mean, it's right around that age.
These guys might not even have hair on their peaches yet. I don't know.
Or they might have huge raging bushes.
I'm not even going to talk about any times that I've seen a dick that was underage, because there's nothing to gain by me talking about a penis that does not have a furry on it.
Right,
fuzzy.
I feel you, man.
There's nothing to gain, but I can gain you people at home. I can gain you by telling you about our new Patreon subscribers.
Oh, that always works.
How about Aardvark?
All right.
Thank you, Aardvark, for your Patreon pledge.
Nick, was that you?
It was. Circling back.
Okay.
Circling back.
Yeah.
Thanks, thanks, Nick. Jody Joy, Jody Dwan. Thank you, Jody Dwan. That was a really tricky last name. All names are tricky for me. That's something you guys have to keep in mind.
It's words. John Holland, thank you.
Frank Latavish. Frank Latavish, thank you for pledging your hard-earned money to the Brohio podcast.
Shoes, booze, and tattoos. That sounds fucking sexy. I love it. Thank you.
What that is, but go check it out.
I like this next one, though. This one's a good one for you.
Nick and Rob suck each other's dicks.
That's exactly what it says.
And you guys may think that they spelled it correctly, but it's all one word. It's all one word. Nick and Rob suck each other's dicks. There's no, first of all, the science behind that. I cannot suck my own dick. And if they're insinuating that you and I suck each other's dicks, that's our business.
Right.
That's between Rob and I on our dicks. Not between you
especially our dicks. Not
for you on and somebody else. Okay. I got a last one right here.
Okay. Sarah, thank you.
Something else that somebody did this week. I'm not even going to give it any light. It doesn't deserve the fucking light, because if I tell you people about it, you'll all start fucking doing it to us. It was bullshit.
Okay.
It didn't upset me. It was just aggravating. But I'm not going to talk about it now.
Oh, damn, man. You got me.
It's stupid. It's really stupid. It's not even worth our time.
Okay.
What's going to happen here this week? We're going to break this up into 2 episodes. This is about the 20 and Back program, and if you don't know anything about it, you've come to the right spot. You've come to the cream spot here at the Brohio Podcast.
Only the creamiest.
We're going to take you on an audio adventure. We're going to take you through the deep reaches of space-time. We're going to come back 20 years later, and nothing's going to have passed at all. That's what's happening with the 20 and Back program. We sat down and interviewed Tony Rodrigues.
There you go. Good job.
Is the star in this show of the 20 and Back program. His interview will be in the second episode. This man was abducted by aliens, participated in government mind control, MK Ultra style trauma-based tactics and training.
Reprogramming.
He became a cargo escort officer in space. He's been to moon,
a clone,
moon, Mars. He's fucking cloned.
He fought bugs, on the moon and Mars.
And
the size of buses.
And you may think, okay, this guy's crazy, but this guy has his marbles. He's completely like you and I. He's matter of fact. He's very certain of his story, and after speaking with him, I'm very certain of his story. I think he has credibility, and he has the evidence to back up what he's saying, and he's got a lot of profound things that he talks to us about, a lot of things that will make your mind just spin in exceptionally weird directions.
Yeah, it was great. We asked 30 minutes out of him. He gave us an hour and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So, hey, I mean, it was a great time.
And at the end of the episode, he found out we were from Ohio.
Yeah, he did.
And he gave us...
He's from Michigan, so
pretty much a fuck you at that point.
Yeah, he ended the interview, told us we sucked. No, he didn't.
He's all right.
He was great.
Now, this episode, like I said, it's quite the audio adventure. But we will like to provide you guys with a quick newspaper article.
Oh, yeah. Per the norm.
How's this guy look, Rob?
He looks great, man. I like him.
He looks really upset. Does he look like he just got done doing something bad?
I would assume so by the jumpsuit.
Bibb County deputies have arrested a man after they say he was caught having sex with a dead woman outside a local homeless shelter.
How dead are we talking? She's still warm.
That's the question. Officials say they were called to the 100 block of Walnut Street, just down the street from Dicknut Street, just after 4 Sunday morning. That's 4 a.m. for all of you people that are into clocks and shit. After a caller complained that two people were having intercourse on the front steps of the property. And if you're his attorney listening, you need to hold on to that witness testimony right there. This witness said he saw two people having intercourse.
Actively engaging.
When deputies arrived at the scene, they say they found a 55-year-old man in the middle of the act with a woman. After asking the man to get dressed, he lasted a pretty long time.
Good for him, man.
The entire response time.
Yeah.
Average response time of police in the United States is around 2.5 minutes. If he went that long between the time the call was put out and the time the police got there and he was still doing it, he had not reached climax, which leads me to believe he lasts longer than the average male in America. Ladies, if you want to get at this guy, he's probably available. Put some money on his books, hit him up on JPay, send some money. Do whatever you want.
He'd appreciate it. After
asking the man to get dressed, deputies discovered the woman was unresponsive. Wake up, bitch! An investigation showed that she had, quote, had been deceased for some time, officials said. They were
for some time.
Deputies have now charged the man, identified as Kenny O'Brien. There's no apostrophe in O'Brien.
No, just O'Brien's one word.
It's a very Atlanta version of O'Brien.
Right.
Whitehead with necrophilia. He's currently being held without bond. Officials have not released the name of the victim pending notification of her next of kin. The cause of death is still under heroin, but officials do not believe it to be foul play.
Huh.
So here's the saving grace for Mr. O'Brien, whatever his name. What's his last name? It wasn't Whitehead.
Whitehead.
It's a fucking parody.
Right.
His middle name's O'Brien, and his last name's Whitehead, and he looks like the meanest black man that I've ever seen. Looks like fucking Black Snake Moan. He is really upset. Jesus. It may have been the saving grace for him that she was dead, because it's a lot. I think he might be able to get out of necrophilia. He can just say, you know, I got that dick. I got that good, strong dick.
She was alive when we started. That's all I know.
She was waiting for me to bust a nut. And I ain't no bitch. I don't be slowing down. I like to be long and strong, take a long time. You know, I like my sex like I like my dick. Long.
She just got dehydrated.
She was alive when we started.
Yeah, she was alive when we started, man.
Oh, God. Jesus, fuck. So I was dicking it down and she died. I ain't stopped for no man.
We've all been there.
I remember one time. Oh, God, I don't want to tell the story. I'm going to tell it. Oh, my little brother doesn't listen to the show. It's fine. He fucking hates
Talk
it.
about fucking your dad too much.
Yeah. You ought to talk about fucking my dad. Me and my other brother were going upstairs to get him to go play paintball, and he didn't know we were coming.
Oh, God.
He lived in the attic of my parents' house.
Yeah.
And we got up there, and he was probably 18. I would say 18, yeah, 17, 18.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm like, I look like a bowling ball. I'm 5'1", not really 5'1".
I was thinking not that short.
5'1", 357. But he's like tall and stretchy. I don't know how it happened. But he was upstairs in my mom and dad's attic, and we got to the top of the steps, and we looked at his bed, and there was some girl riding him, sex style.
They were doing
and
sex.
he was completely butt naked except for a pair of wool socks. And dude, he didn't fucking stop, dude. He put it in overdrive, and he just kept on tearing into it. He hit the mud a little bit. I could tell he hit the mud a little bit. I heard a little, you know, when the first hit third gear.
Yeah.
You got to
rev you up.
Yeah. But he just had them wool socks on, so I know his feet were warm.
Just getting some nice friction going.
I know he was after it, and he didn't slow down. And I said, why didn't you stop? He said, I was almost done. Which is a good reason not to stop.
Yeah.
And that's what this guy is probably going with. And, you know, Mr. Whitehead. Mr. Not Whitehead.
Bless him.
All right. So let's hop in here.
Sure.
Tell him about, it's been in the media a lot recently.
Yeah.
Space Force.
Space Force.
And that leads me to this 20 and back program. Let's tell them about Space Force, the Wikipedia.
Sure. This is
Space Force,
the Wiki edition. So the United States Space Force is the space warfare service branch of the United States Armed Forces and is one of the 8 U.S. uniformed services. The 6th and youngest branch of the U.S. Armed Forces. It was the first branch of the military established since the formation of the independent U.S. Air Force in 1947. The direct... What is that word?
Let's call it the direct descendant.
Sure, the direct descendant of the Space Force Air Force Space Command was formed on September 1st, 1982, with responsibility for space warfare operations. The National Defense Authorization Act for 2020 redesignated Air Force Space Command as the U.S. Space Force and established it as an independent branch of the U.S. Armed Force on the 20th of December, 2019. The U.S. Space Force is organized... Ooh, damn, that was a squeaker.
That was rude, Rob.
That was really rude. Okay, interrupted my flow there. The U.S. You had your own flow going. The U.S. Space Force is organized as a military service branch within the Department of the Air Force, one of the 3 military departments within the Department of Defense. The Space Force through the Department of the Air Force is headed by the Secretary of the Air Force, who reports to the Secretary of Defense and is appointed by the President with Senate confirmation. In terms of personnel count, it is the smallest U.S. Armed Service within the U.S. Department of Defense.
Yeah, you did pretty good right there. That was a long one. I'm sorry I farted halfway through your narrative and ruined your flow, my friend.
That's okay, man.
It's long believed that there is another space program, yes, a secret space program that America has hidden from the general public for many years, called the 20 and Back Space Program, a.k.a. the Secret Space Program.
Oh, yeah.
The term 20 and Back refers to the 20-year commitment that these military men and women make when they sign up to go into space, or the amount of time they are forced to serve as slaves. Recent whistleblowers to divulge their involvement in the Secret Space Program are Tony Rodrigues, who went public in 2016, and he will be featured in our interview that we've already done with him. That is a fucking hour and a half long. Woo! Woo! In our, we're going to release 2 different episodes here. So he'll be featured in that. And there's also Michael Gerloff, who went public in 2017. After these 2 went public, there was a flood of others that came out. There was Michael Ralph, Arthur Newman, a.k.a. Henry Deacon, Andy Basiago, who was actually running for
everybody knows Andy Basiago.
Bernard Mendez, Michael Prince, Max Spears, Randy Kramer, a.k.a. Captain K or Captain Kaye, and Corey Good. What sucks for these guys that came out with their story when they first came out, it kind of seems like they're just trying to ride the coattail of the gentleman, Tony, that we interviewed, and Michael Gerloff. I don't... and we talked about this, Rob. It's not the job of you or I to tell someone whether their experience is authentic, whether it's true, whether it's fake. A lot of you have come to us with stories where me and this guy over here will say, I don't fucking buy that for a second.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it didn't happen to you. Some people may not believe that I walked to the top of that step and I saw my brother fucking it out in some wool socks. They very well could assume that I'm a liar or I am embellishing that story, but I know that story happened.
Right. I mean, it very well could also be, the fact that this other group of people may have known they experienced something, but not have known exactly what it was until they heard the experiences of other people.
And I dare say it. Some of you listening right now that are out there may have repressed memories that pop up, that come to the forefront of your brain, and you might have went through something like this. And all this does for you is take the can opener and pop that can of beans wide open.
Right.
And you say, holy shit, I was in a government space travel program 50 years ago, whatever the time frame be, because time is all irrelevant in this, because the thing about 20 and back program is clocks. Yes.
Clocks.
We're not talking about your cravings. We're talking about clocks and time travel.
Clock. Forgot the L.
I want a big black clock. It matches the decor in that. You want what? Okay. The 20 and back program. The reason it's called that is because you're essentially abducted.
Yeah.
And they launch you into space-time. They launch you into a career where you serve as a slave to the U.S. government, or not for the U.S. government. It's actually the Germans that are kind of seem like they're the ones in charge of it. You're launched into 20 years of service to be a slave. And at the end of the 20 years, sent back to Earth, and you're dropped off at the exact moment that you're launched off into time.
Yeah. So you're pretty much, they're splitting you from another version of you, and that other version lives out the 20 years, but then afterwards it gets put back at the same moment you were split. So you can retain these memories of that 20-year voyage while Earth time hasn't passed.
I'm glad you broke that down, because I have no idea what I'm talking about right now.
It's fucking weird and crazy.
It is really weird.
And just the thought of time being able to be manipulated like that is pretty interesting.
The cool thing about this podcast is we can make up and say whatever the fuck we want.
Right.
But I feel like I want to believe that this is all true. And like I said, I can't be the one to tell any of these people that have experienced these things, that what they went through wasn't authentic. Yeah. It wasn't organic. So,
I mean, stuff like this definitely makes the possibility of like alternate realities sound more plausible.
Does it ever?
I mean, because that technically could be considered, an alternate reality.
Right. One of the hallmarks of the 20 and Back program is that it involves highly advanced technology, time travel, and age regression, whereby the recruit, at the end of his or her service, is actually brought back in time to the point at which she signed up, like I said before. Plus, they are age regressed to be brought back to their age at that time. This means, in effect, they gain a whole extra 20 years of experience in life, although often those memories are inaccessible and buried deep within their subconscious. In other words, they lived that same age range period in their lives twice over in different places doing different things, and only one of those timelines remains active. The first person to come forward with their story of the 20 and Back program is a gentleman by the name of Michael Christopher Gerloff. He served in the United States Marine Corps from 1978 to 1984. Is it URA? Is that what they say in the Marine Corps?
Yeah.
URA. Okay. He also served in the U.S. Army. Look, I did like alternate.
Fuck that up. That's all right.
AOL Instant Messenger style. Sorry about that.
It really is.
He served in the Army from 1987 until December of 1991. He went on to become a police officer for the city of Seattle. I don't believe it's Seattle, Washington. I want to say it's like Seattle, Missouri or something like that. But nonetheless.
The unimportant Seattle.
Yeah. Most definitely. He was a police officer from 1992 until 2001. Then, in 2004, he went to Liberia, where he worked as a United Nations peacekeeping advisor.
Oh,
so
I was thinking he meant like a vagina, but I realized that was labia.
Labia?
Yeah. Okay.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
My wife always says, I'm not going to tell you what she says.
In 2004, he went to the labia. Okay. Good for him, man.
I went to the labia once.
Not in 2004, though, I didn't.
What's really cool, you were
no, you know what? Yeah, I definitely was. Never mind.
I was going to answer that question for you.
Yeah, never mind.
What year was your son born?
2008.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. You're definitely...
Yeah, I was elbow deep in labia at that time.
I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea. I wish... So, my wife doesn't like me to divulge certain information on the podcast. And I wish there was
home address and
yeah, exactly. I wish there were some stories that I could put out there that just got awful. Fucking involve coming of age, but in effort to negotiate with her and to keep her happy, I don't tell these stories. So maybe when we get off air,
just tell them to me, and then I'll tell them on the podcast like it's my story.
You remind start another podcast that's called Shit That Nick's Not Allowed to Say. I won't be on it. It'll just be you. But think about all the shit that you could say. And you could be like, you think. Never mind. You think. You people. You people think. Okay. So back to Michael Christopher Gerloff. Mr. Gerloff. So let's start back in the very beginning of his timeline. Not like his out of, like in space timeline, but let's go to his physical timeline, the same timeline that you and I are living in currently. So he did have some type of extraterrestrial contact, some type of incident that he went through at a young age. In March of 1978, he was driving around with a friend, and he said that they were out partaking in road beers.
Hell yeah.
Before they went to a high school party. This high school party was like their final so this is a senior year of high school. You want to know what I was doing my senior year of high school? I got my first DVD player, and I discovered that I could buy pornography.
Oh yeah.
One thing, we didn't have Wi-Fi yet at my house, but if I took my PSP and I hung out the front window of my house, I could get free Wi-Fi from my neighbors across. This would have been 2005. I could get their Wi-Fi. So then I would have to hang from my front window like fucking Spider-Man and beat my meat to
just keep your wiener inside the window.
To still frame. Like it wasn't even videos. It was on my PSP. I would go to I would go to freeones.com.
Yeah. Damn, I remember that shit.
Yeah. So do I, man. Of course crazy. I fucking do. I burnt so many tread marks off my wiener to that website. You have no idea.
Free ones, holy fuck.
And I was there on my PSP, and I was playing it, playing with my dick.
I was going to say the PSP, or...
I was playing with my dick. And that's how I PSP porn, man. And I remember I sold that thing. This was right at the infancy of Craigslist. So I sold it on Craigslist, and I met a lady at the Huber Heights Walmart, and this was right at Christmas time, and she bought it off me for like $100.
Right.
Maybe more than that. But we had texted back and forth a little, and I sold it to her, and then the next day I get this really hateful fucking message. Like, you could have fucking cleared this thing out before you sold it to me. I gave it to my 8-year-old kid because now he's got all kinds of goddamn... And I'm just like, you get what you pay for, bitch. She tried to haggle me down the price. And I said, fuck you. And then the entire time, I always like to... I'll slip the homeless guy $1 or whatever. I'm always kind of trying to do goodwill things. But when I do give the homeless guy $1, I don't fucking go on Facebook Live for all you fuckheads. Yeah. Christ. But,
I don't do either of those two things. So.
Okay. I'm all about what you give, you get back. If you do good things will come back to you. So I'm thinking the entire time when she's coming to meet me, I'm thinking, she gets out of the car. I'm going to tell her, hey, here it is for you. If you got 50, I didn't need the money. I was working a lot of hours and I was 17 or 18. I didn't need the money. Mm-hmm. I was just going to give it to her for like, $20, $50, whatever. And she pulls up in like this old fucking like Chevy Cavaliers blowing diesel smoke out of the back of it. And all I could see was her belly and her tits pushed up above the steering wheel. And the car was tipped to the side, just like it was getting ready to fall over. And I could see her mustache through the windshield, and all I was thinking to myself was,
nice.
She is paying fucking full price. There's no way I am. And I did, I made the deal and I sold it to her. It made me feel good that I fucked her son up because he has to sit in that trailer, an apartment, wherever he was at.
And hang out that window.
Stare at his mom all day. That big old swamp donkey.
Good for him, though, man.
The words of Bill Wilkins, that big old waffle stomping swamp donkey. Oh, man. So in March of 1978, they're driving around having some road beers, and they stop at the local water tower where they were just sitting, talking, having a smoke, having a brewski.
Why does that seem like it would be the coolest fucking place to hang out? Like every time I'd watch that 70s show and they'd go to the water tower, I'm like, man, I wish we had a fucking water tower to hang out at.
The moon tower. That's from Dazed and Confused.
Yeah,
we never did that.
Oh.
He got shot at our water tower.
Our water tower was full of asbestos and fucking algae.
It really was. And off in the horizon on the right, Michael saw a white light that it caught both of their attention. It was moving very quickly. It would enter the horizon and exit the horizon in mere seconds, essentially. It made movements, he said, that physics and aerodynamics could not explain. It reappeared and started to move towards them and then went away again. Then in front of them, from the sky came a huge black triangle that appeared to be hundreds of feet long with bright lights on all the corners and then a central light right in the middle of the craft.
Okay.
He stuck his torso out the window.
Just his torso? How do you do that?
Gotta get creative with that one.
You just leave your fucking head and your legs in?
Chop your head off and put it in the trunk.
Look at my belly button.
So he stuck his torso out the window, and the dome light was on in the car. There was a mild hum coming from the aircraft, and the best way that he could explain it was it seemed like pure static electricity that was in the air that was causing his hair on his arms to stand up. It was just a static energy that was like a humming, buzzing that was stuck in the air. The craft continued to drift towards them, and it blacked out in the night sky.
Oof.
Eventually, it centered itself above the water tower. When they turned the dome light off inside of the car, the craft immediately threw a red beam of light onto them. Almost instantaneously after it threw the red light onto them, the craft shot away. And that was Michael Gerloff's experience with a spacecraft, and what he claims that at an early point in his life, he felt like there were higher powers and someone that knew something more than him that indeed was watching him, that indeed had an eye on him, whether that be ETs, extraterrestrials, whether this was a government craft, a drone, whatever it was. he feels like since 1978, something certainly has had an eye on him and an interest on him. So not long after this incident, he met a Marine Corps recruiter at his high school, and he decided that the best career route for him was he wanted to go into the Marine Corps so he could become an alcoholic and beat his wife. I'm just kidding. Jesus Christ, man. Oh, shit. I got a lot of Marine Corps friends. You guys are the fucking spearheads of the operation. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
While in boot camp, they did they arrived the first day of boot camp, and he got there kind of late, and they kind of did some shuffling and a few things. I kind of had him up till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. But the next day, the second day of boot camp, that's when they did most of the testing. The last test of the day was an international Morse code test. And about 3/4 of the way through the test, a corporal approached him during the test. And the corporal immediately made him leave the room and took him to a small room. And when he went into that room, there was a captain that came in, and the captain was carrying a file. The captain was very impressed with all of the testing that Michael had done up until that point, and since they wanted to give him the opportunity, I jumped ahead of myself. The captain told him they wanted to present him with the opportunity to do something special in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
He implied, the captain did, the captain implied that they had been watching him for longer than Michael knew. They asked him how he felt about going to space, and Michael was exceptionally excited that he would have an opportunity to work with NASA. They confirmed that it wasn't, they said in his entire life, he had really been into space and space travel and time travel. He's really, a kid in the 70s growing up on Star Wars. And
oh, hell yeah.
That stuff.
All the fun shit.
Yeah. He was excited at the prospect of working with NASA. And he told them that. He said, I would love to work with NASA. And these people in this room said, well, you can work in space, but you're not going to be working with NASA.
Right.
You're not going to be we're going to be working with his asshole, but not NASA, if you know what I mean. They confirmed that it wasn't NASA, indeed. It was something the general public had no idea about. And he was very interested to know how it would change his contract within the Marine Corps.
Okay.
I believe he signed up for a 6-year tour, and I think that he was concerned that if he agreed to do this space program, that he would indeed have to be enlisted in the military for longer than he anticipated, which is 6 years. That's a lot for an 18-year-old to absorb.
Oh, definitely.
And they told him, they said, oh, no, if you agree to this, this is a 20-year obligation, no hands down. Or hands down, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is a 20-year obligation. Without, and he was very concerned for his family, if they would know what he was doing, if they would know where he was at. And then something kind of really, if nothing was strange up to this point, then something really fucking strange happened. The captain he was talking to told him that your family will never even know you're gone. For 20 years, your family's going to know you're gone. But this captain said, no, they're not even going to know that you are ever gone, which kind of certainly raised a red flag.
Yeah, it makes it seem a little weird.
Yeah. Now he's in his entire life, he'd always kind of been thinking about the unknown, thinking about space travel, and this really got him on the track of thinking like, okay, maybe I am being invited to something that we don't know much about. So at this point, there were 2 other Marines that had come into the room, and they didn't speak. They just stood there. He told them that he would indeed partake in the space program, but that the night before, when he arrived during the hustle and bustle, he tried to call home, and he was unable to get his mom and dad to answer the phone to tell them that he was there. His one request was that they would send, that he would get the captain or the Marines in the room he wanted to make a phone call. He wanted to make a second phone call home to his family, and they said, we can't do that for you. But they said, what we can do is that we would send a telegram, or what they call it, a Marsgram.
Fucking Marsgram.
Foretelling right there, isn't it? So they would send a Marsgram home, or a telegram home to his family that said, hey, he got to boot camp safely. So they would do that for him. And that piece of information is significant. This is not normal. And I asked around to some buddies that were in the military, and I think the phone call is protocol, but the Marsgram,
they're not just sending out random Marsgrams for everybody.
Like, hey, I made it. That protocol was not normal at all. So he said he would join. He'd left the room with the two Marines, not the captain. They immediately took him underground and whisked him away to an area where there was other people waiting. And all of this was kind of fuzzy to him at this point, but he said he sat there with a processor and he did a lot of paperwork pertaining to this special detail that he was signing up for. There were lots of naval and marine personnel around him, presumably probably not doing very much.
Yeah, that's about it.
Shots fired.
It's about true, though.
Shots fired. I don't know anything about the military branches. I know they all fucking hate each other.
Yeah.
They all think the other one doesn't do anything. All I know is my friends that are in the Army, they will fucking poop anywhere. They will dig a hole and shit in it. It doesn't matter where they are at. My friends in the Army will shit your gutters of your house. They will shit in your trash can in your kitchen. They will poop wherever they need to poop. I do know that my Marine Corps friends, they drink a lot of fucking alcohol.
Yeah, they're usually a little crazy in the head.
They're usually the ones that share a lot of Donald Trump memes on Facebook. A lot of China memes.
Yep.
And my friends in the Navy, they
suck a lot of dick.
They always have brown wives, like like not exotic wives. And my friends that are in the Air Force are really fat and don't look like they were ever in the military. Well, that's kind of how.
That's the one I want to be in.
Beyond that, I don't necessarily know anything about the Coast Guard, if it even really exists, if you're even out there.
I don't think it's a thing.
One page that jumped out to Michael during all this processing was there was NASA paperwork, and then he kept seeing the logo for Lockheed Martin.
Nice.
It was going through, and I will say that I'm not very well versed in the dealings of Lockheed Martin and all of the things that they do or have done, or some of the questionable things that they've been mixed up in. I know there's a lot of weird shit. That they've been, but he kept seeing their logo on some of the paperwork. He was briefed that the 20 years of service that he agreed to wouldn't be treated like traditional service.
All right.
After your service, there would be a helping hand. That's so fucking weird.
That is weird.
And they would help you post-service. Whereas most people that go for 20 years, they get a retirement, they get, health care, they get lots of benefits when they work in the military for give 20 years of service. He was advised that he wouldn't get these benefits. They did tell him, hey, you know what? This is kind of a weird situation, but after these 20 years, we are going to give you a little nudge, a little secret hand to help you along the way. And he did speak candidly in some of these interviews, and he said that there was a secret, there was something, a hidden force in his life that would constantly help him professionally, things fall in his direction and kind of nudge things in the way that he wanted them to go. After his memory takes him to the point of the end of the paperwork. He said that after he finished the paperwork, it was like he was being sucked back in time, or he said it was much like when you're watching a film, old school film,
reel,
and you get a bump in the film, and it just everything's gone for a second. And that's kind of how he explains after that, is that there was just like a feeling of being sucked backwards, and he wasn't. It's all kind of. It's not real clear to him. When he woke up, he was in the same recruitment room with the two Marines. And when he woke, this is so fucking weird, man. So hard to explain. So he's in this intake office underneath the Air Force. And if I sound like I have a speech impediment, I've bit my tongue while Rob and I were eating dinner. And it completely wrecked it. I mean,
destroyed it. Oh, and it's on the backside too.
Yeah. God bless America. And that person sent us that mean review, said, these fucking fat fucks can't wait 2 hours to eat their goddamn food.
Sure can't.
I just got done huckle fucking my sister and I'm mad at this podcast. I like when people get mad at us.
Right.
You fucking know us. If you were my neighbor and you needed help moving a dresser, I would help you. But then people take it to the next level and they say, oh, they don't
fucking idiots.
And then the guy that called you racist, he wrote us another email and said he would beat me up.
No, did he really?
Yeah. Yeah, he did. He just said he'd beat me up. I'll bounce you all around town.
What a fucking loser.
I know. But he's still listening.
I know.
He's paying our bills.
Yeah, fuck you, buddy. Fuck you all over again.
Listen, buddy, if you ever come to me and got in my fucking face, I would make out with you so hard that you wouldn't even desire to touch.
I would suck your dick so good.
You wouldn't even desire your mother's kiss ever again after you tasted my sweet lips. You'd get one taste of the Chick-fil-A sauce taste that's constantly on my beard and upper mustache. That secret sauce.
It's that Nickalicious 14 herbs and spices.
My cum tastes like Dr. Pepper.
It's magical.
Diet Dr. Pepper. My semen tastes like Krispy Kreme glaze.
Sweet Baby Ray's.
Sweet motherfucking tastes like McDonald's barbecue sauce.
So good.
So good. You're fucking. Oh, so like
it's magical.
He said he felt like he was sucked back. He sucked a dick. Wow, I'm all mixed up in my research here. Said it was like he was sucked back in time or there was a bump in the film. When he woke up, he was in the same recruitment room with the same 2 Marines, and he kept on telling them, he said, I'm so sorry for falling asleep, because he felt like he just woke up. And they're like, no.
It was so rude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so sorry.
Like, I was getting ready to join fucking NASA. I couldn't save myself from a nap. I've been that tired before.
Yeah.
But they said, no, you're fine. You're okay. He remembered that the process he was in, they just fucking stared at him while he sat there in shock. And after they were done staring at him, all they said to him was, okay, you're done here. You can go join your platoon. After all that stuff that they just laid out.
Huh.
All that stuff where they said, you're going to be a fucking space traveler. I'm Buzz Lightyear. All this stuff that they're going to let him do. Then he has the recollection and the memory that he was whisked away, taken underground, did paperwork, feels like he was sucked back in time. Then when he comes back to, he's sitting in the same office with the same guys that pulled him out of the test an hour before that. And he said he felt like he had just woken up from the deepest sleep ever. He's apologizing. He's heartbroken that he fell asleep. And they're just like, no, you're fine. You did a good job. Go join your platoon. So then he goes back out and he joins the platoon. And he starts later on in his life, he starts to go through this. There was these repressed memories that start to come out, just like all these other guys. Mm-hmm. They have these memories of what happened during the 20 and Back program. These memories that are not ever supposed to be able to recall these memories from their mind. And they are starting to make these breakthroughs on the shit that happened during this 20 and Back service that they did. He had memory as an intel officer with a secret space program. I watched the interview that he did with EXO. There's some really good videos. There's a really good interview of Michael Gerloff on YouTube where he goes through all this stuff. He said that once these repressed memories started to come back to him, he felt like there was a long-term plan put in place. This is talking about his job when he was in the 20 and Back program, that he worked as an intel officer. And his job during the 20 and Back program there was a long-term plan put in place to help to help society come to grips with the fact that there was an alien government that was taking over. Okay? And his job as an intel officer was kind of be like a public relations officer to the general public to say, okay, aliens are here. Aliens are taking over. Don't fucking panic.
Please don't.
Please don't panic. Please don't loot the fucking Dollar General. Y'all can smoke your Pall Malls, just don't break into the bitch. So we've talked about this MK Ultra based training and these trauma based things they do where they can make a sound. What's so funny over there, Rob?
Nothing.
You think about the Dollar General getting looted?
No. Oh, man.
You thinking about my brother and his wool socks?
Yes.
Okay. Much like these trauma-based things where they can snap a finger or ring a bell, and they can get a candidate or a slave to do something simply just by making that sound. What would trigger all of these repressed memories for Michael Gerloff, for him to remember the room in the Marine Corps boot camp, for him to remember that he was an intel officer in the secret space program, for him to remember all of his infinite intergalactic space travels, was for the uncontrollable North Korea. Whenever in our current timeline, North Korea would start to get crazy with their fucking nukes. Kim Jong-un would do a lot of saber rattling. All these things that that happened just a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever these things started to happen, that's when it would start to open his brain to all of these things that had happened whenever he was in the 20 and back secret space program. And that stuff started to happen. And that's when these memories started to come back to him. He said that he often... Are you laughing about the dog man thing?
No.
Okay,
no.
all right.
I'll tell you later. What I'm laughing about.
All right. And Michael Gerloff speaks about early in his life, he did know that he kind of had psychic abilities. At the age of 3, he would get constant visits from a dog man. It was a dark being.
Fucking Scooby-Doo.
It was a dark being that would appear to him in the night. That was a head of a dog on a man's body.
Okay. All right. I've seen some people that look like that before.
All those stupid fucking avatars on Facebook right
now. Oh
my
gosh.
I put this on my Facebook.
Oh yeah, you did. I can't believe you put that.
What's it say? Oh, I gotta go do it.
It said something like, a lot of your guys' avatars couldn't capture your front butt or something.
Yeah, what did I put on my Facebook? God, my fucking wife posts so much stuff on my Facebook wall.
Same thing with mine. There you go.
It says, some of y'all got a front butt, and that avatar you're sharing isn't depicting that. So,
like, everybody's like, fuck you. I guess this is aimed towards me.
So if you got a front butt, don't be making that fucking avatar.
Yeah, man.
There ain't no feature to select a front butt on that avatar.
No,
don't do that.
Just slap it on.
He got visited by the dog man, which is it's a German Shepherd with a human dick.
That's scary.
Essentially. Something, and he remembers that something was grabbing his inner thigh whenever this dog man come to visit him, and it woke him up. And at the foot of his bed, there was this humanoid dog with legs of a human, and it scared him so badly that Michael exited his physical body.
Damn.
And he could view the room.
He fucking died.
Hovering above his...
He just died.
He's like, oh, a Wabador with Tweever with my dad's dick. It's a Beethoven with a cock monster. What some guy at my work, he said something. What did he say? He said I was making fun of him for being stupid, and I think I told him he had a little dick or something.
Uh-huh.
And he referred to his penis as a Cockosaurus Rex.
What the fuck?
Oh, so I've been referring to my wiener as my Cockosaurus Rex for a few days now. My wife doesn't like it. So I gotta go let the Cockosaurus Rex. I gotta pee. Gotta make a little pee diddle. Hey guys, Nicolicious here with a quick word from one of our sponsors, BetterHelp. I know we're in some strange times right now, and I, for one, have been dealing with just kind of the social restriction, and kind of got me down in the dumps, kind of got my family down in the dumps, and it's kind of hard to, it's been a little difficult to rise above it. And if you find yourself fighting back and forth, I guess trying to get your feelings out there and trying to find the help you need, well, we have an outlet for you. Our friends at BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can send them a message anytime you'd like. They're available 24/7. They're always open for communication. And it's not self-help. It's professional counseling, all without ever having to sit in an uncomfortable waiting room. We know how much trouble those could be right now. Whatever issues or whatever specialized counselor you may need, they have help with depression, family conflicts, anger, anxiety, stress, relationships, sleeping, trauma. Anything you share with them is completely confidential, and it's super convenient. You never have to leave your house. It's all done online. It's professional. It's affordable. We were offered free sessions with BetterHelp, and I can speak for myself and say there was a lot of things that I needed to talk through that maybe not, that I didn't necessarily think that I needed help with, but it felt good to get the things off my chest and just to have some guidance and to talk about it. So you can go to betterhelp.com/Brohio, and this is strictly for our listeners. You can get 10% off your first month. Just go to betterhelp.com/Brohio. Join over 800,000 people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's betterhelp.com/Brohio. So this fucking dog man scared him so bad he shit himself and left his body.
He's teleported.
Rob, we're already 50 minutes in.
Holy shit, how?
Is that even right? I don't even know, man.
What are we doing right now?
Hurry up.
Yeah, we do.
So and the entity spoke to him telepathically. He said, "We know who you are, and we're watching you." And the dog man said, "They," over and over and over, warning him against telling. And the dog man warned him against telling people about what he had seen, which was the dog man. The dog man and other dark beings would visit him 2 to 3 times per week. The dog man came the most.
Yeah, he did. Giggity.
Dog. The shadow figure would also visit a lot as well. The shadow would show only the shadow man, I guess we call it, would only show to intimidate him and not to speak. And when I say speak, they didn't actually speak. He could communicate telepathically with the dog man. And he has this vivid recollection. Okay, Michael Gerloff does. That he wasn't even born of human existence. He has a very vivid memory of traveling down to this planet Earth from space at the age of 2, and he wasn't, and he's not completely sure where he arrived on Earth, and he wasn't driving, but he was being launched down to Earth in some type of spacecraft. There was something that was physically drawing, some type of energy that was drawing him down to Earth. And he arrived in St. Louis, Missouri. And when he got down to Earth, he started to hover above the Earth. And he could see people in a pool, and he saw a 2-year-old on the shoulders of a man in a pool at a hotel. And he watched these people play in the pool for a while. And eventually, he launched himself into the body of the 2-year-old that was seated on top of the man's shoulder that was in the pool.
Hell yeah.
Some of you may think that I'm telling a tall tale right now. It's all fucking true. Been verified through DNA analysis, lie detector tests.
If that happened to me, that's the first place I'd want to be, is have my dick on the back of a middle-aged guy's neck.
I'm going to go watch little boys swimming in the pool. And that was his recollection of how he got to Earth. And they did some DNA tests later on of him and his parents. Probably one of the 23andMe fucking things.
Right.
And what was weird is when the stuff came back, his DNA origins were completely different than his mom and dad's. They were not the same. They were not the same at all. And it just, Michael Gerloff guys, like, see, fucking told you guys, goddamn alien. And he spoke about, while he was going through Marine Corps boot camp, there was a blood spot on the inside of his leg, and there was a lump inside of his leg, and it turned into a festering wound.
Ugh.
He went to the bathroom and pried out a small BB that was inside of his leg, and he still had the scar, and he showed it on the video I watched. And the BB was covered in like a clear mucus substance, and it had spikes on it, and it fucking stunk. And he thought that I don't know if it stunk. I made that part up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, huh?
But he felt like that it was possibly an implant or some type of device used to kind of keep tabs on him. And he had no idea where it came from. He said he didn't put it there. He didn't get shot, nothing like that. But that it just didn't look, the thing that he pried out of his leg, it certainly didn't look worldly, to say the least. He got out of the Marine Corps after doing 6 years, even though he also did a 20 and back program during the 6 years. Am I tearing your brain apart right now?
Yeah, I'm pretty much
Oh,
done.
God. When he doubled back to try and join the Army after leaving the Marine Corps, the Army couldn't process the routine transfer for him to get into the Army. They said there was no record of him ever being in the Marine Corps.
Oh, shit.
But he had in his hands paperwork that showed that he was in the Marine Corps. He was trying to get into the Army Rangers. The records were so the Army person handling the case kept on going to the Marine Corps, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. First they said, we have no record of him ever existing. Then they said the records were unavailable. Then the Marine Corps told the Army the fucking building that his records were in were burned to the ground, and there's no records to be shown. He eventually went to his congressman and requested assistance from his congressman. 4 days later, this Michael Gerloff guy, 4 days later, he received a large envelope from his congressman, and it was his discharge paperwork and his DD Form 2214, 2 discharge papers with 2 different ranks on his discharge paperwork.
Okay.
And he has both of those, still has those. Like, he can readily show those, and those are in the video as well. And there was very strange verbiage in his discharge paperwork. It was a discharge paper, but it wouldn't say that it was his final discharge. The verbiage was really weird. It wouldn't say that as actually his final discharge. He came out in 2015 with his story of his infinite travel and all the dealings that he did in the secret space program. After he came out with his story, he was approached by several government officials, dark government officials, that said, you're doing a good job. Keep coming forth with your information. Keep putting your memories out there. Keep coming forth with all the information you're coming out with. Whether he's credible or not, pretty cool story. Sorry, I had to take a little swig of my tea there.
That whistle?
Help my tongue
Yeah.
de-swell. And that's kind of and he's a little hard to talk to because he had some legal run-ins the past year or so, I do believe. You guys can look into that if you want. I'm not going to burst his bubble here on this world-renowned podcast. But that leads us to our next subject, who's actually
our interviewee.
He is the subject of our interview, who provides very in-depth analysis about his time traveling, his back and forth with space, all the stuff that he did. His name is Tony Rodrigues, and he claims that in 1981 to 1982, when he was in the 4th grade and he was 9 years old. Now, I got all this research by watching all of his different interviews. I didn't want him to have to come on our show and start his chronological order just like he does in all of his other interviews. I wanted there to be new substance on our interviews about what he was talking about, some new shit.
Yeah. We were going to lay out his timeline and let him just talk about some of the different shit.
Now, when he was 9 years old in the 4th grade, he claims that he was in a gifted school, or he was in a gifted class. I'm not really sure. He was part of an advanced placement program for his age. He claims in his class there was a boy that was the same age that came to school in a limousine every day. He came from some place that no one knew where he had come from. He had come from outside the district or outside of the area, and much wasn't known about the child or his family. His father was in the area doing some type of business negotiations with Coca-Cola. This kind of heads... the kid was more intelligent than all of the other kids in school. He was just a super advanced in his studies, in his knowledge. Yeah. He was exceptionally intelligent. And Tony was also very gifted. He's still very gifted, still very smart, very articulate, very well spoken. And Tony at that age, Tony Rodrigues, the subject of our interview, was very advanced at that age, and he had a hard time processing that there was another kid in the class that could rival his intelligence and rival his ability to be the best in class. And he and Tony, this weird limousine reptilian kid, did not fucking get along very well, simply due to the fact that it was like a competition type thing.
Yeah, I could get that, yep.
So Tony fucking killed him one day in the bathroom. Shit. Oh, I'm kidding. I made that part up. Tony didn't kill him. They didn't get along very well, obviously. And one day, Tony went into a class or library with the brainchild, was seated amongst a group of girls that had surrounded him.
Pussy magnet.
Yeah. Brains will do that for you. Not us, we're retarded. The kids were in awe because the brainchild could read their minds.
Oh.
When Tony entered the room, they all wanted the brain kid to do the mind reading trick on Tony. And I think what he said the kid was doing is he was having them think of a color, and then he would tell them what color they were thinking of. Tony, after much begging, finally agreed to do the trick, and he said he was going to think of a color. Instead of thinking of a color, Tony said in his mind, "You ugly motherfucker. Everyone in the school hates you, and you're never going to get a girlfriend." Or something along those lines. That's exactly what he thought. And he's like, you're ugly. You're going to be alone for the rest of your life. You know, you're a piece of shit. You're ugly. And that's what he thought. And he didn't think of a color.
Fuck you, kid.
And he said that in that instant, that kid just looked completely broken and just, like it had completely ruined his entire life. So something telepathically happened right there. Whether it be the kid just didn't like Tony, or he actually knew what Tony was thinking, but there was some type of breakdown right there at some point. Later that year, there was a science fair, and these guys feuded back and forth for the entire year. And the brainchild's dad came in as a judge for the science fair. There was a conversation that was had about what their dads did for a living, and the brainchild said his dad was in the Illuminati. Like, just straight up said his dad was in the Illuminati. At the science fair, Tony was passing the brainchild and the brainchild's father when the brainchild pointed out Tony, and he said, there's the kid that ruined my confidence. That's a weird fucking thing for a 9-year-old to say.
Very strange.
Like, there's the kid that ruined my confidence. And then after he said that, he and his dad had this weird conversation, exchange back and forth, and Tony couldn't quite put it, and this is still Tony in his physical body, we're in our timeline. He said he couldn't quite put his finger on what they were saying, just like, the dad kind of alluded to, we'll get him taken care of. We'll take him, we'll get him taken care of. And Tony wasn't really sure what that meant, but he kind of went on with his life at that point. Tony recalls that later that day or night, he woke up and there was a tall gray alien standing over top of him. This is where it gets really fucking good. Alien abductions are completely wonderful. While the alien was standing over him, there was lights in the house were flickering, and the lights outside the house were flickering, and the telephone wouldn't fucking stop ringing off the hook. There was a blue orb that crashed through the house and tickled Tony to the point it gave him like this rush of being tickled over his entire body. That sounds like
I would hate that.
Yeah, can I get one of those for my dick? Can I get one of blue orbs for my wiener? Can I get a blue orb that can go inside me for my wiener?
I'm gonna fuck that orb.
I'm gonna fuck this dead chick on the sidewalk. Jesus. This alien appears over him, and he thinks it's his dad because his dad would always play practical jokes. When I was up in my room with an alien mask on, he reached up to push his dad's face away, and the face of whatever he was touching was wet, cold, and porous.
Ugh.
Just like a nutsack that was dipped in some baby oil. He screamed, and then he became frozen and paralyzed. At that point, 4 shorter reptilian aliens he observed at the foot of his bed. They picked him up, and there was a flash, and then he was unconscious. He just remembers being taken at that point. The alien asked, after they got him, after he was abducted, they took him to a craft, presumably, a lab. I'm not really sure. It's kind of gray to me at this point. They took him somewhere, and he had an exchange. He had a conversation with the alien, where the alien asked him if he could borrow his consciousness for 20 years, and told him,
sure.
He's asking a 9-year-old kid,
yeah,
you're 9, an alien asks you anything. The answer is yes.
Exactly.
Just fucking do it. But the alien asked him if he could borrow his consciousness for 20 years and proceeded to tell Tony, hey, I'm going to borrow your conscious for 20 years, but no one's going to know, much the same as what happened to Tony Gerloff in the Marine Corps. You're going to go somewhere, but no one's going to know you're gone, and you're going to come back right now. And of course, Tony agreed, because why the fuck not? You're 9, you're trying to go to space, try to do some space traveling.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, he half-heartedly agreed and was immediately placed on a surgical table. They laid a white sheet over him, and the sheet sucked tight to his body and collapsed all around him. And I think it did make a slit for his mouth, and then they made a slit around his eye. They took a needle. I'm sorry. I think they took some type of cutting device. Could be wrong about this. And they cut around his eye. They either cut his eye or they just cut the sheet around his eye. But then they took a needle and they inserted a needle deep into his right eye.
Yeah.
Causing him to go unconscious at this point.
Yeah, I remember they were talking about they were trying to find his dominant eye.
Right. Which,
yeah.
The best way to test for a dominant eye, for me, is I pull my penis out, and whatever eye I see you really going at it with, that's the dominant eye.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So what's worked for me. His next memory at this point is him waking up at Inyakern Airport, or that's an airfield in the desert of California. There was a male doctor and a female nurse standing over him. When he woke up, he said he suffered from amnesia and had no recollection of his life at all to that point. He was put through a standard medical evaluation or medical physical. At this point, everything gets even more hazy for Tony Rodrigues. He alleges that he was subjected to trauma-based mind control. From that lab, he was taken somewhere. And the new place he was taken, he was subjected to trauma-based mind control, where much the same as MK Ultra, which he might have very well been a patient or a subject of MK Ultra type torture experiments. He said he was electrocuted. He was made to watch subliminal messages on movies over and over and over and over and over. He had his arm dislocated. He had all of these god-awful fucking things done to him during this these trauma-based training exercises. He was in a class with 8 to 12 other kids, and all the cruel treatment, they always said, when they would do the bad things to these kids, they would always rationalize it with, well, you're not going to remember this when this is all done, so let us do whatever the fuck we want to do to you, because you're not going to remember this. Well, still, that shit's fucked up in the moment. Whatever, if it... Such a weird place, man. It's strange. Tony claims when they brought him back, so he did the 20 and back program. He remembers, Tony remembers pretty much everything. And in our interview, he tells us that, but Tony pretty much remembers everything. When he remembers, and when he comes back from the 20 and back program, he went to breakfast the next morning, and his parents were visibly upset. They told his sister to shut up when she asked about the bright lights that were going off and on all night long. So there was in Tony's mind, he conceived this as his parents, and the fact that they were eating breakfast was strange to him as well, because they never ate breakfast. Mm-hmm. But when he went to the table that next morning, when I say the next morning, I mean after he had come back from his 20 and back service, everything was very strange. His parents were short and snipped at his sister when she asked about the blinking lights. Tony's under the assumption that his parents were abducted or had some type of treatment performed on them that same night that he was abducted and taken into the 20 and back program as well. That's the way it added up for him. So you may think that this is all done, but there was an alternate reality that Tony was involved in. After the alien procedure where they cut into his eye, he arrived at the airbase where he was subjected to the MK Ultra type trauma training. He was then shipped off to a billionaire in Seattle, Washington. And he was a slave of this billionaire in Washington for quite some time. But I think he comes back after that. He did go to Peru after being with the billionaire, where he this is fucking crazy, dude. He worked in labs. He wasn't making the cocaine, but
he was a drug mule.
Broke my fucking wedding ring.
It's
a rubber one, but the single ladies. My metal one was getting too tight on my fat fingers. He went to Peru, and one of the things that, this is the best way for me to explain it. In the show Stranger Things, 11 can close her eyes, and she can do remote viewing and go to places where nowhere else can go. Tony possessed the same skills to do much like what 11 was performing. And the reason he was being used in these cocaine laboratories and these drug runs in Peru that were going from Peru to Colombia, they would use him much like a telekinesis type thing. At the beginning of the day, they would say, what's going to go wrong? Where are the cops going to be? And it would be Tony's job to close his eyes and go to wherever, to travel into the future of the day, or to use his telekinesis to say, like, can't go here. You should probably go this route. There's danger here. Don't go there. But after he would do these remote viewing sessions, and I'm just calling them, they might not even be remote viewing sessions. They might be astral projection. They could be a lot of different things. I don't know exactly what it is. After he would do these, much like Eleven in Stranger Things, she would come back, she would have a horrible nosebleed, and it would take all of the energy out of her, almost to the point where she couldn't function. Yeah. And the same thing would happen to Tony. The more and more he started to do this, when he would come back, he would just be out for days. He'd just be put down, just tired, weak. It would literally take every ounce of his being out of him. But he did this for around 2 years, and he was like a hero in these parts because somehow the townsfolk had found a way to get to Tony, and they could ask him questions, and he would provide answers to some of the townspeople. So when he finally left there, he would tell them if there's going to be bad weather for their flights, or if the police would be in certain locations. They applauded him as a hero when he left Peru. He was getting very sick after being put under, like I said. So he was sent back to the millionaire and this was a practicing Satanist, the billionaire that he was sent to live with. Oh, God damn it. This is so fucking crazy. While he was living with the billionaire, he was treated as a slave. And we've talked about Pizzagate and Pizzagate and the Clintons and all this wild stuff in this podcast before, and adrenochrome, something else we're going to get into. This billionaire that he was a slave of would have Republican-themed fundraisers. So, all you fucking Donald Trump supporters, listen real good, you fucking baby fuckers. Tony said that these Republican fundraisers that this billionaire would have, he and 2 other boys would go to these parties, and they would have a huge dinner during the day. But then that night, the tone of the parties would change. Around 9 p.m., they would have a dinner party. There would be military officials. There would be high-ranking political officials. There was lots of sex. There was lots of drugs. Okay, it says that at any time, there would be 6 to 9 boys available, or maybe 6 to 9 boys that he was living with there with the billionaire. It was treated as an adoption, like an orphanage or a foster care home, kind of how it was seen. But the billionaire that he was living with was giving them radical injections to make it to where they couldn't feel anything. And at these parties, in Tony's words, they would simply sit on their knees and be forced to perform fellatio, suck old men's dicks.
Yeah, he said they would just sit there with their mouths open. That's what they were told to do.
Play the dick like a trombone.
Yeah.
Which is, oh my God. And at this time, he was a young boy, 13, 14, 15 years old. And I did hear in Tony's, one of his interviews, he said, we were at that age where there was a fine line. Were they too young? Were they not too young? If they're not 18, they're too young, in my opinion. That's how I feel. Babies are babies, man. Adults, you're 18 when you're an adult.
Yeah.
And still, 18, you're still a fucking baby.
Yeah, you still don't know shit.
You don't know fucking shit. Some of you knew a lot when you were 18, but...
not as much as you think you did, though.
Yeah. They would get... And he said that if they refused to do the sexual acts, they would be beaten and taken away by a security guard, and then they would be replaced. They were... And also, which is very strange...
Oh, yeah.
They were trained...
It's pretty clever.
Whenever they were performing these sex acts on these men, they knew, as Tony knew, that there were camera crews positioned all around the property. And then when he would perform these sex acts on these nasty old men, it was his job to get them to face in a certain direction. So the cameras that were off in the distance could take pictures of these elites performing these acts with these young boys. So the that it could be used as blackmail further on down the line by these billionaires. And that's one way billionaires get the billions of dollars they have, is by being in the fucking pockets of the politicians.
Yep.
And the ultimate deepest reach in the pocket of a politician is not guns, is not the pharmaceuticals. It's if you have incriminating, damning evidence of them doing horrible fucking things. And if you have fucking pictures of George Bush getting his dick sucked by a little boy, believe me, you can do whatever the fuck want.
Oh, yeah. You can skate by pretty easily.
Forever.
Yeah.
Hence the reason why a lot of people don't take this into consideration. Jeff Epstein was a convicted child molester before all of this stuff happened, where he killed himself in prison.
Yeah.
He was convicted of these sex acts against young girls, which would put the normal person in prison for fucking life, easily for life. He did his sentence in a county fucking jail where he could leave during the day, Rob. A convicted child molester. You go to hardcore fuck me in the asshole prison for that stuff. You don't go to the county jail. Jeff Epstein went to a county lockup, and he was allowed to leave during the day. And when he was in the prison, he hung out in an office with Little Debbie's and cheeseburgers. Why? You know, there's no money in the entire world that could save you from something like that, but there is something that could save you from something like that. It's if you had incriminating evidence against politicians, against Bill Clinton, who flew to your private fucking island 1,000 times, your pedophile island 1,000 fucking times. You had damning, incriminating evidence against these elites. We're fighting the InfoWars now. We're down in the bunker of the Pro Isle podcast. That's what I fucking sound like right now.
You really do, yeah. Just connect the dots, man.
That's all you gotta do is connect the dots.
Yep.
They try to turn these young boys gay. That wouldn't be hard in this studio to turn anybody gay. Tony said that they would not be allowed to talk to girls at all, and there was a strict order. They were not allowed to see images of girls. It was a practice. They were just trying to turn these young boys gay. He spoke about at these shows that the young girls would dress up in Mardi Gras garb and they would perform, and then these men would walk over and they would get the sexual favors from the young girls performing in these Mardi Gras shows. And he said for the line for the girls was so long that some of the men would just say, well, fuck that line, and they would go get blowjobs from the young boys because they didn't want to wait in line to get blowjobs from the young girls.
Jeez.
I'll just go home.
Yeah.
I'll go home and beat my meat to Golden Girls.
Go the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, it'd be my turn to suck a wiener, and the old man walks up and just starts peeing all over me. Oh, sorry, my fucking prostate's all swollen up on me. That's like a goddamn fucking head of cauliflower right now. It's all swollen up my butthole. I peed all over you, boy. I want this one. I'm going to pee on him.
Mark him.
I'm going to take this chubby fucker home with me. And he also speaks about an extraction of adrenochrome at the altar with a dead young boy. I'm not going to tell you completely about that. If you hang around for the interview, download that episode. You can, he talks about the ritualistic procedure he went through of this billionaire Satanist drinking the blood of a young child and eating a young child for the adrenochrome, which we have to do a topic on that.
Oh, definitely.
Do an episode on that. At some point, Tony started to get really sick from the medicine that they were giving him, and the doctor worked with him a little bit, but eventually it was passed down to Tony like, hey, if you don't start taking this fucking medicine, you're going to be gotten the fuck out of here. And he couldn't take the medicine.
Yeah, he was saying he pretty much had like an allergic reaction to the medicine.
Yeah, so they put him in a van, and they took him behind a store. And then two men, I don't know if it was two men, but guys in a van picked him up in a van and they put him. They exchanged They exchanged him behind the store. When he was placed in the other van, they immediately gave him an injection, and when he woke up, he was on a spacecraft headed to the fucking moon. So you go
the fucking complete left turn
from being orally raped to flying to the fucking moon. I don't know if I think he hit the jackpot. I don't think.
Yeah, he definitely came out on top on that one.
Although, I don't even know. When he woke up, the guy told him he was going to the moon to be trained, and his memory is a little vague right here. They drugged him and trained him to not run when he was scared, sort of like a fight or flight type thing, and he talks about this in the interview. Part of his training, they strapped him with fucking grenades, and they put him in an arena with a giant bug.
Yeah.
It looked like, he says it looks like the mix between an ant and a spider.
Yeah, he said they were, like the size of like a Volkswagen or something?
Yeah, and they would go in these arenas and they would have to fight these giant bugs as part of their training. And one kid ran up and detonated his grenade, presumably killing himself and the bug, but they saved the kid somehow that had detonated they saved him somehow. After his training on the moon, they took him to Mars, where he would participate in active military missions. They were fighting against indigenous bugs that were on Mars, which that makes sense. They trained him to fight these bugs on the moon, and then he was transferred to Mars, where he would actually fight these indigenous bugs on Mars. They did have the science and the technology to regrow limbs that were blown off in battle. There was 3 missions that Tony remembers going on. The first 2 missions, nothing really happened. But on the third mission, there was a violent exchange with the bugs. He was bitten or attacked somehow or absorbed a blast of some type, and he was maimed. I think he lost a leg and an arm.
Yeah. Arm and a foot, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they took him back to the base, and the whole entire time they're like, stay awake, don't die. But he lost a lot of blood, so he was attempting to pass out. And once they got to the front door of the base, they allowed him to pass out. And he begs the question, why were you fighting fucking bugs? Why were you fighting bugs on Mars?
It's wild.
And he said the reason for this is that they had established a research facility on Mars. It was an underground base. It was an empty base, but it was very large. There was so much bug violence that they were testing different ways to keep the bugs away from the base so they could bring more research personnel onto the base. And he was part of the experiment used to fight these fucking bugs, to see if this was one of the ways that they could keep a clean base, a safe base, to allow all this research personnel to come back and work on the base. Rob, what the fuck is going on here?
It's getting fun,
man. They were taken to... At one point, he was taken to another city on Mars with huge underground domes. He was trained to fix the spaceships, and he remembers there was a hangar that he went to with hundreds of Germans. And here's where it gets a little more complicated, Rob. I'm doing this all from memory. Some of you may think, why are the Germans involved? Well, since the early 1900s into the World War II, there's been a lot of people that have come forward that say the Germans are involved with the draconian alien race. The draconian alien race are very intellectually war-driven, advanced. They're fucking badass aliens. They're like cyber. The draconians are the reptiles. They're the reptilians that everyone talks about, Middle Earth, all that shit. That's the draconian alien race. They somehow hashed out a deal with the Germans. And there's a lot of people that came forward and said, yes, the Germans have a secret base below Antarctica. And what helped them establish this secret base is their relations with the Draconian alien race. And the Draconians, in return for the technology they gave the Germans would give them people. And Tony was one of these people that was given to the Draconians. I'm trying to remember all this.
Just getting handed off left and right.
Yeah. In they helped the Germans build this secret base in Antarctica. And it's said that the Germans used this secret air base or the secret space base in Antarctica that they did indeed launch to the moon, and the Germans used the technology that they got from the Draconian aliens. They were able to reach other star systems and other planets altogether. Tony speaks vividly about whenever he was on his space travels, going on missions to Antarctica. He claims that there was a Catarina Mountains in South America, and they could enter into the sides of these mountains, and when they would enter into the sides of these mountains, they would come up through the bottom of Antarctica.
Holy shit.
And that he said he could see the earth, the ice above him, and that they would perform all their operations in this secret base below Antarctica. It was about 50 degrees underneath the ground. But he could see all the ice and the glacier, whatever, all that shit up above him. And he remembers vividly going into Antarctica for these secret missions while he was doing his 20 and back space program. They exchanged cargo. They did some type of cargo exchange when they were in Antarctica. When they would, he speaks a lot about that he was German-owned equipment. So Tony wasn't really a person. He was equipment that was being used by the Germans in this secret space program. And the Germans reported to the Draconian aliens. He could come, and he did reach a point in his career, Tony did, where he could kind of come and go as he pleased. So he wasn't a slave 24/7. He was a slave 24/7, but at the end of his day, when he punched the clock at 5 o'clock, it wasn't really 5 o'clock. But at the end of his day of work, he could go out and he could travel around to different. He lived in an area called Ceres, and he could move about Ceres. And there was apartments, and there was all kinds of different stuff. And he had a girlfriend that he would go visit. And he said the social scene is a lot different because everyone possesses telepathy.
Mm-hmm.
Where you can't speak. You don't have to use your mouth to talk. You can communicate purely with your brain alone. He said that when he would go to his girlfriend's house, there was a thing above the door. And when he would get there, she could say mean things telepathically and tell him to fucking go away, or she could let him in, like, come on in, and he would.
Only it was that easy.
Only it was that easy,
right?
So there's a lot of other people that have come forward with information pertaining to the 20 and back space program. I'm going to skip past Arthur Newman for Rob's sake. Arthur Newman gave testimony about there was a kind of the same thing about there was drug smuggling and there was stargates and communication over vast distances and a lot of stuff with chemtrails and wars with China. Look up Arthur Newman. There's a lot of fucking wild shit that goes with him. But one other thing I want to touch on is the CIA JUMP program.
Uh-huh.
Is there was a third whistleblower that we want to talk about that's confirmed that U.S. President Barack Obama was a participant in the CIA's teleportation jump room program of the early 1980s.
Yeah, Bishago talks about this a lot.
Yeah. Bernard Mendez made this allegation during a seminar held in Vancouver, British Columbia on, I think this was like 2016.
Mm-hmm.
During the seminar, Mr. Mendez stated that he, Mr. Obama, former DARPA Director Regina Dugan, Andrew Basaggio, and William Stillings attended a jump room training class taught by Major Ed Dames at the College of Siskiyou in summer 1980. Bernard Mendez also stated that he teleported with Barack Obama and Mr. Basaggio in jumps that took place from 1981 to 1983 when Obama and Basaggio were college students. At the time, Mr. Mendez, who once served as a special assistant to President Richard Nixon, was investigating the jump room program for the U.S. intelligence community. Then, in January of 2012, through National Security Council spokesman Tony Vitor, Mr. Obama had to come out to deny. So Obama sent out this guy, Tony Vitor, who's a National Security Council spokesman. He sends this guy out to deny that he was ever part of the 1980 to 1983 CIA jump room program. Mr. Mendez's statements confirming the existence of the CIA's jump room program and the roles played by Major Ed Dames and Mr. Obama in it directly refute these denials. Other jump room program participants identified by Mr. Mendez and Masaggio, including Dugan, who is now an executive with Google, as well as female program participant who is a member of a presidential family, have neither confirmed nor denied their involvement in the CIA's jump room program. Asked for comment on Obama's silence in the face of confirmation of his participation by the three jump room participants, Mr. Masaggio stated, quote, President Obama campaigned for president, pledging that his administration would be one of transparency. He must now fulfill that promise and acknowledge that he served with us in the jump room program. During the EXO University seminar, Mr. Mendez explained that his mission to evaluate the CIA's jump room program originated from discrepancies being reported by the jump rooms on the U.S. East and West Coast, respectively. According to Mendez, the jump room technology had been transferred from a species of gray extraterrestrials to the U.S. government. The West Coast and East Coast jump rooms were reporting up to 40 incidents of participant injuries per month occurring during jump room teleportation to unknown environments in space. Yet several days after each teleportation jump, the reported injuries to participants had disappeared. Both the East Coast and West Coast CIA jump rooms experienced losing power at times when their control room in Ohio was reporting normal operation of both jump rooms. The speculation was that the source of the jump room technology, gray extraterrestrials, may have been covertly interfering with the functioning of the jump room teleportation technology, unbeknownst to the control room operators in Ohio, which is actually right here in the Ohio studios.
Yes, it is.
The U.S. government deployed Mr. Mendez along with an evaluation team that included several prominent U.S. astronauts to determine the cause of these discrepancies and determine the true destinations of the jump rooms. Mr. Masaggio and Mr. Steelings have confirmed that Mr. Mendez was both one of their fellow chrononauts taking jumps with them and a federal investigator whose primary function was investigating questions like where the jump rooms were going. On one such test, he recalled teleporting with Mr. Obama and Mr. Masaggio to a planetary environment in space that was initially thought might be the Mars they had been trained for. Mr. Mendez recalls that when he had Mr. Obama shoot a flare at the sky, Obama the fucking space ranger, the flare bounced off of a ceiling at about 62 feet in the sky, indicating that the three chrononauts had teleported to an artificial environment or domed enclosure of some kind. Whew, that's so fucking cool. The precise location of the enclosure was uncertain, or may have been either a dome on a celestial body such as Mars or a freestanding holographic creation in space. Mr. Mendez determined after multiple jumps that the destination the jump rooms were reaching was not Mars. Mars was out of position when most of the jumps took place. Its atmosphere was deficient in oxygen to sustain human life. Gravity on the surface was stronger than Mars gravity would have been. The temperature swings on Mars from negative 170 degrees Fahrenheit to 225 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oof.
It would have made surface visits not survivable. Mars' lack of an ionosphere would have led the irradiation of the jumpers. He concluded that the jump rooms were actually taking program participants to a synthetic quantum environment, or an SQE, a term invented by Mr. Masaggio to describe a fold in the time-space continuum which the gray extraterrestrials have established an artificial holographic planetary domain. According to Mr. Mendez, the U.S. government has identified 153 synthetic quantum environments constructed by the Greys and the near-Earth environment ranging 400 miles from Earth and the surface of the Earth, on the surface of the Earth and beneath.
That's crazy shit.
Fucking motherfucker. Fuck this. I will never do. We have recorded
Obama the Chrononaut.
3 fucking hours of plus of podcast this evening. My fucking tongue hurts so bad right now.
It's raw.
Raw dogging it.
Raw dogging.
Dog.
And I'm tired. I'm fucking beat.
I thought you were falling asleep a couple times.
I may have.
Your eyes are all glassed over.
Maybe I just
said, "Oh, there he
disappeared.
goes."
I did my 20 years.
I got a defibrillator in my pants. This dick will bring you back to life.
Break it out.
So I'm gonna have a. My voice is gone. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm probably not gonna edit the next episode. I told Rob, I said I'm gonna sit up all night and edit that bitch. I'm gonna let the masses deal with the audio breakdown. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there was a couple times where internet connection was bad, so there was his voice will break out. It'll drop off and on, but I mean, honestly, it's not that bad. So it happens for like maybe a second or 2
or 7
or an hour. No, it's not that bad, but yeah, it's a really good listen.
Go check it out.
Do it.
Please pray for my tongue.
Pray for it.
It hurts so bad. I don't think this is a deep dive, Rob. Probably try and come back next week with something a little more lighthearted, a little more something we can piss some Brohio energy onto.
All right.
But this is a deep one right here.
Yeah, this was deeper than
hot.
My butt.
My fucking nuts are sweating.
Yeah.
So
the food sweats, man.
Go check out the next episode, the interview.
There's 2 of them that come out at the same time, so check them both out.
Yeah. He loves you.
Love you.